Welcome back to That Career Coach podcast. Today, we are talking about how to have a healthy mindset at work with business owner, content creator, and career coach, Emma Sturtevant. Welcome, Emma. It's great to have you on the show today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. And I think it's so important that we're diving deep into this topic of mental health when it comes to the workplace. I think it can be really overlooked and it can be a struggle for a lot of people. So I'd love to
Mhm.
hear a little bit about your background. How did you get into coaching? And like, what are some of your favorite things to talk about with your clients?
Yes, I know. I Mental health is so important and I feel like it's not really talked about enough in the career coaching space.
Yeah.
And of course, like people go to a career coach because they need help with strategies, and that's what we really specialize in. But
Mhm.
there also is that, internal struggle that everyone feels. There's that internal struggle that everyone feels when they are going through the job search process that can be really hard. And so it's important to kind of bring to light those things, and that's something that I like to emphasize with my clients at the beginning of the process is let's kind of work on that mindset so we can stay really confident throughout the process and always show up as the best version of yourself. Um
I absolutely love that. And I think that that's so true because so often when I'm working with clients, I'll hear them start to talk negatively about themselves. And something that I'm often communicating back is like the way you talk about yourself is the way that your peers will talk about you. It's the way your boss will talk about you. And so I think if you're going in with that healthier, confident mindset, that absolutely has an impact not only on your ability to get the job, but then how you're perceived after you do.
Exactly, 100%. You carry that confidence with you throughout your entire career journey. So it is
Yeah.
very important to touch on.
Yeah. So what would you say like a healthy mindset looks for you in the workplace? Like how do people show up in a way where they either appear and seem confident or that they actually are internally? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like this one can be kind of lost for a lot of people. I feel like they don't really focus on that in the workplace. But I think a lot of it comes with what you're doing in your personal life to help supplement that in the workplace. And, that means taking care of yourself. That's the most
Mhm.
important step is that you really can't help others if you can't help yourself. So when you're outside of work hours, doing self-care after the workday, decompressing, reading books if that's what you like to do, and getting a good night's sleep, those are the best ways to start showing up as the best version of yourself in the workplace. But in the workplace, it really does stem from knowing who you really are and understanding your unique strengths and values. And that's why I always, start with mindset and self discovery at the beginning of the process, because you can always go back to that. You can always go back to this list of your values and your strengths and why you do what you do so you can continue to stay on track, and also building that solid foundation of confidence. Those are all just packaged as really important things to focus on.
Yeah, and I think that that's so true. And a lot of the time, when I work with people who are trending towards that more executive level, right? They've
Mhm.
got that higher level of seniority. The confidence difference is huge, right? The way they feel about the work that they're doing, about themselves, about their personal brand. So much of that is key to how they ultimately come across to their peers and to their leaders, right? And I think that a
Mhm.
lot of that does come back to they know who they are. At that point in their career, they feel a lot more comfortable with what it is
Mhm.
that they've been doing, what they're capable of, what they've learned, and then that starts to show up. And so I love that kind of going back to the basics of like who are we? What are we good at? How do we show up authentically in the workplace? And then how does that translate into honestly just how you feel about the work that you do?
Mhm. Exactly. It seems so simple of, like you said, someone who is, working towards a promotion or at that executive level and overseeing a group of employees. Sometimes you can lose yourself and you can, get in that negative headspace or whatever it may be. So yeah, it is really important to just always be able to go back to who you are and always show it up as your most authentic self every day.
Yeah. And what kind of questions do you think that listeners should be asking themselves if they're trying to get back to that authentic version of themselves? They're trying to understand themselves better. What
Mhm.
advice do you have for them to kind of start thinking about themselves, and what kind of, introspective questions would you have them ask?
Yeah, I love this question. And I say, have fun with it. Journal out all of your highest priorities in life. What is important to you? Who are the most important people in your life? What are your favorite things to do? What are your long-term goals? Just
Mhm.
have fun with it. Just think about what makes you happiest and then reflect on how your current career fulfills these. And if there are certain gaps in how your current career does not fulfill them, is there a way that you can kind of shift that, either if it's a mindset or shift something about how you show up to work, or, about your work environment, that can keep you staying really on top of your true authentic self. So it seems like such a, simple little easy exercise, but once you start to write everything out and you learn about yourself, you learn
Mhm.
about what really makes you happy and what your long-term goals are. And it's always good to just continue to revisit that, just so you can really get to know yourself better.
Yeah. And I'm going to go off on like a small tangent here related to what you just said, because I think it's such an interesting point. Is so often you will hear of people who stay in a very draining situation for an extended period of time, right? That they're being kind of pulled down into the bog of of the place that they work and the culture of that workplace, and they stay. And so often I feel like as an outsider looking in, it's so easy for us to look at it and go, well, this company isn't a culture fit. It's not allowing you to be your authentic self. Or, maybe your boss is not the right hiring manager fit for who you are and how you like to work. And I think this is a big struggle for people to balance that desire for loyalty against what's best for you and your mental health, because that's ultimately going to determine how you show up at work most days, right? Is how you feel
Mhm.
about the work and how you feel about the work environment. And so um, I think that this is such an interesting shift we're seeing in corporate culture, because historically, people just stayed, right? And now you've got this Gen Z millennial generation that they're like, nope, if it's not for me, I'm out. I'll go find something else. And I love to see that, because I do think it's so important. And so I'm curious kind of what your take is on this culture shift that we're seeing, which is, we used to kind of, there's a difference between fighting through a difficult time at work and staying in an environment that's not good for you.
100%. Yeah, the pandemic definitely made people reevaluate what's most
Mhm.
important to them. And you're seeing, I mean, we've all heard of the Great Resignation, and you're seeing these people completely shifting. Uh-oh, you're good. You're seeing these people completely shifting their careers. You'll see someone in one career path and they completely change it. And
Mhm.
that is praised now. Maybe before it was kind of, people would think, oh no, what are they doing? But now you praise people for following after what they are really passionate about. And I think that's the really cool thing about it. And something that you mentioned too is that before, when you are, in a tough time in your job, you kind of feel stuck and you kind of feel like you need to push through it. But now managers are also starting to pick up on it. So a lot of the time you'll see, when you're going through those struggles and you're not sure if your job is the right fit for you, now more than ever, managers are more understanding of that. And we've sort of
Mhm.
shifted into a more, and of course, this depends on the company. Um,
Absolutely.
but a lot of the time, you'll see managers really, wanting to shift this job position that you're in to be something that you are really happy about and that you're really proud of, because it does cost more to hire someone new.
Yeah.
And it is so much more just known among everyone that if you're not happy, you have the power to try and search for something new. So I think that's something really cool about this shift as well, is that managers have, and of course this doesn't go for everyone, but people are being more flexible with the job description and what it requires, and accommodating that to people so they're really satisfied in their role.
I absolutely think that's true, right? That companies are starting to become more accommodating of people's preferences and there's more of a shift. I do see, I tend to have the more I don't want to say pessimistic, realistic side of social
Mhm.
media when it comes to the workplace, right? I think that's kind of common in my social media trends. And I think there are still plenty of companies out there that, if the job's not the right fit for you, they're like, great, go on your merry way and we'll see you. But I do agree that we're starting to see somewhat of a culture shift away from that, right? Now, I think the bigger the company, the less they care about the individual, not through any fault of the companies, but just it's a lot harder to care about one out of 200,000 than it is out of one out of five, right? Um, but I do think that what you're talking about of how do you know when a job is not the right fit? And then how do you structure a conversation with your manager to say, listen, I like working with you. I like the company. I'm struggling with like these aspects of my job that I don't feel like are soul fulfilling, or I'm struggling with these partner groups that are really making it difficult to enjoy the day to day, right? And there's in a good relationship with a boss, you can absolutely have that two-way communication. And like we were talking about earlier, in a not so great management communication, maybe it's just that you pack up and you leave and you find something that's a better fit, right? And I do think we're starting to see that a lot more. And then I think the flip side of this is some people are superstars and they do find the right path, right? They do end up in a job that they love, in a company that they love, and they move up really quickly. And then I watch them struggle with imposter syndrome, right? Then they don't want to go into these meetings because they're afraid that they don't know what to say. So, how do you help clients kind of overcome those limiting beliefs when they do find success in their career, but then they lack the confidence or the seeming confidence that they can do that job?
Yeah, imposter syndrome really, I mean, we're all affected by it. Everybody
Mhm.
is affected by imposter syndrome in one stage of their career or another. I mean, even the highest up CEOs of large companies will feel imposter syndrome. And limiting beliefs are really our worst enemy. Um,
Mhm.
and I think it's important to understand why we have those limiting beliefs. And they were created as a way to protect us. They are formed in the mind as a response in the nervous system to not feeling safe.
I'm with you.
my my words just twisted up a little bit.
No, you're good.
Um, but if you think about some of the most common beliefs around careers, a lot of people feel like they're not qualified or worthy enough of landing a job they really want. Or even when they get the job, they don't feel like they're worthy enough of being in the role. So that really is your mind's way of trying to protect you because either you've been in a situation in the past that's molded that thought into your head, or you've heard of someone else going through that, or it could be your mind just simply shielding you from getting hurt or your ego being bruised.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that you go back to kind of almost the science piece of it because I've been reading Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett, which any listeners who are looking for like a great book or podcast highly recommend. And he has a section of his book where he talks about imposter syndrome. And he says basically what you said that like the science of it is you're trying to stay safe. And he talks about your comfort zone in terms of like three stages. So there's your comfort zone where everybody feels comfortable, right? This is where most people like to hang out. And then where your imposter syndrome sets in, you either have positive zones where you go out and you try something you've never done before and you get a positive reaction and it reaffirms your belief that you can do that thing. Or you go out and you try something new and you have a negative reaction and it further ups that imposter syndrome wall that says, I don't know how to do this. Right. And so I think, so often when we come into a situation where we have imposter syndrome, where we feel like we're not capable, it is important to remember that you may try that thing and have a positive reaction, and you should be dwelling on that. You should be remembering that. You should be making that part of your process so that the next time you're asked to do that thing, you feel better about it and you build that skill towards that end solution. And if you go out and you get a negative reaction, great. What do we need to change the next time becomes positive and reaffirming? Right. And it is such a challenge. And it always makes me think of the meme that says, if you ever feel imposter syndrome, go talk to the CEO of a startup. And it's not because I don't love all of my CEOs of startups, but a lot of the
Yeah.
time they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just showed up and this idea was great and it worked. Like they have as much imposter syndrome as like the frontline employee. And so it is a good reminder that we feel sometimes that it's unique to us, that we're the only ones struggling with that because people around us may seem so confident. And the reality is that it's a struggle that almost everybody faces at certain stages in their career. And building up those positive responses, that reaffirming belief is kind of the best way to get out of that and get into that positive headspace again.
I think humanizing everybody is
Hmm.
so important. Even the CEO of a startup, CEO of one of the biggest Fortune 500 companies, we're all humans at the end of the day. We're all going through the same emotions, and imposter syndrome is, like you said, like we have been talking about, there's a scientific reason behind why we feel like that. It is our body and mind's way of protecting us from getting hurt or getting embarrassed or, you know, whatever you're really feeling. And I love what you just mentioned. I'm definitely going to be reading that book. But it also brings up the fixed mindset versus growth mindset debate
Hmm.
and how you can go about your merry way in your career and think that, everything is going great for you. And then if something goes wrong, kind of everything goes crashing down and you think, oh my gosh, what's wrong? What's going on? And you really have that fixed mindset. But if you can apply the growth mindset to those instances where you start to feel imposter syndrome creeping in, then you can learn from it, you can grow from it. And again, going back to it, humanizing ourselves, nobody's perfect. We're all going to be feeling it at some point.
Yeah. And it's funny in my with the clients who work with me in my program, I always tell them that imposter syndrome is not a fear of the unknown. It's a lack of trust in yourself to learn the next thing. And I always joke that if I was going to make a super kitschy sweatshirt, that's the that's the quote. Um, and I think that it is a reminder, right? That like you have to have trust in yourself that you can grow into that next level, that you can learn
Mhm.
these things, that you can step into the next level of your career. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck. You're going to plateau and maybe not in the place that you want to, right? There's a difference between choosing that you've made it high enough that you're ready to hang out and getting stuck somewhere where you can no longer move up, right? And so how do you bring in that growth mindset into those environments to really help you continue to escalate your career and to grow in the direction that you want while maintaining that healthy mindset that you want to have?
Yeah, and there's always an origin of those limiting beliefs too. You can go very, very deep into why you're starting to feel the way that you feel. And a lot of the time, it is something that happened in your childhood that maybe is subconsciously buried deep inside of you that you just need to, search for and try to find and become aware of, because then you can grow from it for the long haul, like
Hmm.
substantially grow from it. Because when you're going about your day and you feel imposter syndrome creeping in and you address it and let it go and move on, that's great. But what's even better is if you can get to the root of those common limiting beliefs that you feel creeping up on you, because then you can start to eliminate them fully.
Yeah, and that's so true. So I want to switch gears slightly to kind of the other aspect of your coaching. So a lot of what you do is kind of that healthy mindset, going in, feeling that balance. But the other piece is really that job search aspect of the career, right? How do you navigate the job search in a healthy way? And how do you make sure that you're, finding the right roles that are going to fit to everything that we've talked about so far today? So we're kind of coming out of September surge. This is when all the companies are posting because they've still got a little bit of budget left and they're trying to grab everything they can. So what advice do you have for people who are looking for a new job, and how can they kind of stay positive as they go into this, slightly more competitive job market?
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely more competitive now. I think we're seeing that the market's getting even more competitive just as we're coming out of the pandemic. And like I mentioned earlier, the Great Resignation is still very, very much happening. So it is competitive, and that's the reality of it. And most of my clients, I'd say 99% of them right now are trying to break into an extremely difficult industry to get into, which is the medical sales industry. That's what I broke into, and I know how difficult it is. So I always have to remind them that everyone has to start somewhere. Every
Hmm.
single person who is in the industry has had someone take a chance on them. It's
Hmm.
all about finding that company and that manager that sees that potential in you and is willing to invest in your growth.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's so true is especially when you're making a big job change, right? I will often encourage people, if you're not switching industries, it's
Hmm.
always easier to make a job type change internally, right? Where you have connections, you have network, you have reputation, than it is to make an external move. And when you do make that external move, you are looking for that person who's willing to say, I see enough of your fungible skills, enough of those things that have overlap with what I'm doing, that I'm willing to take that chance on you. I'm willing to bring you in. I'm willing to give you this shot. But it does take a lot of trial and error, right? And we
Hmm.
we often think about the funnel, right? However many jobs you apply to, some percentage of that you get a call, some percentage of that you get an interview, some percentage of that you get a job offer, right? And so if you think of that funnel in terms of looking for a new job, maybe much smaller percentages as you move
Hmm.
down, right? And so maintaining that positivity and knowing that it's not about your struggle in the job search, but it's your struggle to find the right person almost who's going to connect with you and see that opportunity in you.
100%. It's never anything to take personally.
Hmm. I know
It's
I've got to
never,
fly.
I know, that was funny.
It's all right.
Yeah, he wants to be a guest in the podcast.
Yes. We'll call it
Um,
the fuzz. Yeah.
yeah,
No.
I love it. He's like, now's my time.
Exactly. I'm getting on.
Yeah.
Sorry, please continue.
You're so fun. But what I remind people is it's never you. Like you
Hmm.
can't really take it super personally when a company doesn't want to move forward with you because we get attached to jobs throughout the process. And another thing that I prepare people for is just for what's to come. And I'm not trying to, say this in a negative way. I'm not trying to say that you're not going to get a rewarding job at the end of it, but you will get rejected from jobs.
Hmm.
You will feel discouraged. It really really is smooth sailing, and it sort of relieves this idea of perfectionism or going in blindly without really understanding what's to come. And
Yeah.
that really goes back to the mindset piece and why I feel like it's so important to start off with that is to get that understand the reality that it's not always going to be that perfect job search,
Hmm.
and everyone's been through it. Every single person has been through some sort of rejection, no matter what level you're at in the job search. You're going to get rejected, and it never has it's never anything for you to take personally. It's just there's so many reasons a role won't work out. And if it doesn't work out, there is something better out there for you. And it's just freeing up that space so the right one will come to you.
Absolutely. Well, I love that. And I've loved having you on the show, getting to chat with you, really talking about this good mindset that you can take with you into work, right? It's so important. And so I'm just curious, what parting words do you have for our listeners, advice for them, things you would want to share with them if they were your clients and they were coming to you asking for advice?
Yeah. I don't know where to go with that.
Anything.
I think that, I mean, strategy is so important. And what I really specialize in is getting kind of my little phrase is I help you get your resume to the top of the stack. So that is, where my specialty is. It's getting noticed by companies, it's by stepping outside the box. It is about quality, not quantity in job searching. So if you're applying to a ton of jobs and moving on, then you're not really going to get as much traction as if you are applying to less jobs, but you are, editing your resume for that specific job and you're updating a cover letter and you're reaching out to people. Networking is a huge thing too, especially in this day and age Networking
Hmm.
is huge. So that is what I really love to do. And that's really where my specialty is. But I also just love the mindset piece so much because I think as a, collective, we are very hard on ourselves and we have very high expectations for ourselves. So just speaking it more into reality and just talking about it more, I think relieves people a lot. And I actually saw a statistic that said it was a Forbes study, and it said that 80% of people don't feel like they're in the right career right now. And that's
Wow.
crazy. That's a lot of
Yeah.
people. And really, my goal is to lower that percentage and help others feel fulfilled. Because if you are not fulfilled in your job, of course, see if there are ways that you can, talk to your manager about feeling more fulfilled in your job and investing in your current company. But if you feel like your heart is elsewhere and you have that feeling that it's time to move on, it's possible. It's possible for everyone. We all deserve to have a career that we are passionate about and always consistently learning and growing in. But yeah, that's kind of my specialty. I'm on LinkedIn. Emma Sturtevant on Instagram. I'm Emma Career Coach. I have a one-on-one coaching program. It's sort of my signature program called Dream Career Accelerator. And it's 3 months long, and you get messaging support and access to some different documents and cheat sheets from me. But I really struggled in my career search for a long time. And it's a huge reason why I decided to, once I broke into the industry, I really decided that this is what I'm passionate about, and other people deserve to land their dream job at the end of the day.
I absolutely love that. And so, if you are listening to this podcast and what Emma is sharing is really resonating with you, check her out. Again, Emma Career Coach at Instagram. You can also email her at emma@emmacareercoach.com. And then, as always, I will put all of her information in the description below so you guys can get in contact with her if you would like to. Emma, it's been so great having you on the podcast, getting to chat with you. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. It was so great to be here.
Love that.
That's it.
Okay, great. Let me stop the recording.